going on, everybody? My name is Joe Filomeno, and you're listening to another episode of Oak Performance Radio. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Oak Performance Radio. I'm your host, Adam Lane. If you're new to the show, our goal here is to create some content, some fantastic content for athletes, parents, and coaches. We tell stories, have laughs, and go into everything that is the end game of athletic performance, helping athletes achieve their optimal performance and be the best they can possibly be. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Oak Performance Radio. I'm your host, Adam Lane. With me today, from AHQ, Coach Joe Filomeno.
How are you?
I said that right, didn't I? Filomeno?
Yeah. Filomeno.
It's a little bit Italian.
Very Italian.
Just a small amount. Do you know what part of Italy we're dealing with here?
Sicily, Calabria, and Bari.
So my grandpa was from Turin. We're mountain people. Mm. So typically we wouldn't talk to you dirty Sicilians, but that's, we're making an exception today.
I appreciate it.
Look at this. People coming together. Joe, this is exciting. I appreciate you taking the time. You own Athletes HQ here in Rockford. Played a little bit of baseball. For the tens of people that listen to the show who might not know who you are and why you're such a big deal, tell these people who you are.
Well,
and why you're such a big deal.
I'll definitely start by saying I'm not that big.
Stop yourself.
So I own Athletes HQ Rockford. It's a franchise of Athletes HQ. The original one is from the Elgin area. Jordan Dean and Derek Shillman are the guys that pretty much started the Athletes HQ name, brand, and I coached for them for a few years, and I loved what they were doing over there. And they were talking about expanding, and I was like, well, I don't really want to drive from Rockford to Elgin every single day anymore, and I would love to own my own business as opposed to, working behind the desk. So let me be your guinea pig and let me open one up in Rockford. But originally I'm from Cicero, Illinois, so it's just southwest of the city of Chicago. I went to St. Rita High School on the south side of Chicago, and then went to the University of Louisville for 3 years. Was drafted by the Texas Rangers in the 15th round of 2014 draft. Played with them for parts of 4 years. And then I stopped being that good and they fired me, basically. They gave me my release. So then I bounced around independent baseball with the Kansas City T-Bones, which are now the Kansas City Monarchs in the American Association. And then the Fargo Moorhead Redhawks in that same league. And then I finished my, I guess you can call it, professional baseball career in Australia. I played in the ABL for like half of 1 year. So like in Australia, their summer is our winter. So they play baseball during the winter out there, which, well, they play it during their summer. It's our winter. So I got to go down there, which was an awesome experience. It was a blast down there for sure.
Down under.
Yeah. The baseball down there it's good. It's definitely on the rise. And I'm grateful to be able to say that baseball has brought me to parts of the world that I would have never been if I didn't play baseball.
A lot of Americans down there, or a lot of Australians, a lot of everybody.
So they had mainly Australians. I think each team was allowed to have, 4 or 5 Americans.
They limited you.
So
they kept you.
They called them imports. I believe there was 4 or 5 American players, and then I think a couple, 4 or 5, maybe Latin American players or Asian players or, European players or whatever it may be. So they did limit it. It was majority Australian baseball players, which, that group of people, the Australian baseball community, is very tight knit. They love baseball. And what they're trying to do is grow the game of baseball in Australia, which if you go down there, you'll realize very quickly that not a lot of people know that baseball's out there. But the people that do absolutely love it. And they are very supportive, and the fan base there is awesome. It's wild. You'll get called names down there that you didn't know existed, and you're like, what's going on right now? I'm in Australia, but this is a blast.
Is there cricket down there? Is cricket a thing?
Cricket's a huge thing.
Is that a competitor of baseball? Does that help the baseball?
I think it's probably a little bit of a competitor. I think the old school cricket players want cricket to last forever, and I think cricket will last forever for sure. It's probably, I guess, worldly speaking, it's more popular than baseball.
You think? Really?
I mean, if you want to talk about I
don't know much about cricket. I'll be honest.
Middle East, and cricket's gigantic out that way in Australia. And just, even in Europe and those, I guess you can say across the pond, if that's not the worst cliche out today.
It's not.
It's big. Baseball is gigantic in obviously America, Asia, Latin America. But if you talk about the Middle East, Europe, even Australia, it's not that popular. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because there's not enough.
America's pastime.
Yeah, it is America's pastime, but maybe there's just not enough traction there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's missing, I think, from the rest of the world. Somebody to go like, hey, no, baseball's fun, and start to build it up all over the world.
Look at this. So you play some baseball. Long time. When did you start?
Oh, God. So I was born in Joliet. Okay. I remember my first ever baseball experience. I don't remember the team name. I don't remember. I know I wore a black shirt.
Okay.
And it was T-ball. And I remember sitting down in center field and saying, this is boring. I hate this. I don't want to play anymore. And then I played.
Not off to a great start.
Yeah.
But
then I played for 25 more years after that. So.
Position.
I was a left-handed pitcher in college and professional, but I played a little first base in high school as well.
Okay.
I caught until I was 14, and then they said, sir, you're left-handed. You're never going to catch again.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Found a left-hander mitt, left-handed catcher's mitt. Okay.
They make them.
Yeah.
I got one at the facility that I use. Catching is by far my favorite position on the baseball field.
I used to catch.
Yeah.
I did not have much of an arm, though. I could block a pitch like nobody's business, though.
Well, that's more than half the battle, I say.
Especially the way our pitchers threw. I was in the dirt a lot, but fantastic. So now we're coaching. You're running Athletes HQ. We're just in our second year.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay.
May 15th of 2023 was our official open date.
Yeah. Look at this. Owning business, running this, baseball and softball. Compare what you're seeing now. I'm just going to jump right into it. With how kids, you're quite a bit younger than I am, but like if you growing up, playing baseball versus what kids are doing now in the way of like, if you're going to compare you growing up playing ball versus the average kids that you're seeing playing baseball in the way of still having high expectations. Hey, maybe I want to play in college or something like that. Or I want to be like super good, all conference, blah, 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 blah. Difference in what you're seeing. Not looking to rip apart kids, but like it's a different environment today. Can I say that?
Yeah, definitely.
Thoughts?
Well, I'll start by saying this, right? The world that I'm in now currently with travel baseball, right? Like that in the last decade has totally exploded. Yeah. Right. Like when I was playing travel baseball, I started when I was 13. So I started with the Upper Deck Cougars, which I think they're now called Hitters Black.
Okay.
So Hitters is up in Racine. The guy who runs that's RJ Fergus, one of the best baseball guys you'll ever see. Okay. So Upper Deck Cougars when I was 13, all the way basically until I was 18. Played a little bit with the Hitters, played a little bit with the White Sox scout team, a couple things over here, like traveled around, played with a couple of different teams, but Upper Deck was really the team that I played with. Okay. But when I was playing, there was plenty of travel teams, but like there was probably 5 main ones, right? So, and I still think
in all of Chicago land, is that
pretty much? Okay, yeah. So it's like, I'll name a few, right? So there was Upper Deck, there was Sparks, there was Top Tier, there was Downers Grove Long Shots. And I'm sure I'm missing a couple, and I'm sure that some people that may know others are going to be like, this guy's a moron, right? But like, those were pretty much the main ones that I recall when I was growing up. Okay. But now it's like, let's take Rockford, for instance. There's 10 plus baseball travel organizations just in the Rockford region. Yeah. Right. So,
and how many more softball?
There's more softball than baseball in the Rockford region.
Really?
I would probably say so. Wow. Yes. Now that is a great thing, but it also is a little bit of a tough thing, right? Because it's like, hey, there's so much access to travel baseball. It's almost watering down travel baseball, right? Like when I played travel, it was like, hey, you were AA, AAA, major, or elite level teams, right? That's what it was. Now there's A, B, C, D level teams. Not talking bad about those teams at all, because those teams need a space. What really changed that was basically the diminishing of Little League and rec baseball. I'm a huge proponent of Little League baseball and rec baseball. I think that every kid should start out playing rec baseball, playing Little League baseball, because like you see it every year, right? The Little League World Series, that environment is incredible. Yeah. And that was always a goal of mine when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. It's like, hey, when I'm 12, I want to make it to Little League World Series.
Those kids can ball.
Oh, they're incredible, right? But what you'll find is like in that World Series now, it's a lot of travel kids that are playing for that local little league that now can go play in that Little League World Series, right? Where it's, when I was playing, it was like, this is your little league. I'm from Cicero. I played for South Cicero Little League. And then there was the Stickney Little League, the Lyons Township Little League, the LaGrange Little League, right? And like, that's where really you started to form rivalries and like, oh, I don't like playing this team. And you had the sense of pride of where you were from, right? And there's still people out there that have that sense of pride. Like I know Rockford is a very, very prideful town and where they're from, right? And everyone rocks the 815. Everyone loves it. And I love that about this place, you know, but when it comes to the baseball world, it's like, oh, I'm an Athletes HQ player, right? Or I'm a Midwest Prospects player. Or I'm an RBA player. Or I'm a Benny Elite player, right? Like there is that intercity kind of competition, which is awesome, right? Because kids, they need competition, right? We thrive on competition. But it's tough when it comes down to it. It's like there's so many travel organizations and it's kind of watering down the baseball in one area, right? So that's kind of my take on it. I think that kids nowadays, they play way too much, right? And we've talked about this. I think kids playing 100 games a year as 10, 11, and 12-year-olds is crazy, right? When I was playing professional baseball, I played 142 games. And that was a long season. And that was as grown men. Right? And
professionals.
Kids playing the same amount. And talk about what happens to the parents, right? Like parents have to take off of work and parents are dishing out however X amount of dollars to play for said organization. And then an additional probably 10X what they're paying for that on the travel, on the hotels, on the gas, on the food, for everything that comes with it. I think it's unnecessary.
Who needs a pension? I mean, really, gosh.
It's tough.
401k, completely overrated. You don't want to retire.
Right.
You got to travel to blankety blank. You can't travel. You can't just go down the street. You can't play in Madison. You have to go Florida. That's where the better baseball is. Sorry, my sarcasm. No, I think it's interesting how that, it has gotten, and there can be some good with this too. Like I know with our volleyball team and stuff like that, a lot of these, they'll end with a big national trip at the end of every year. And, kids enjoy it. The families spend time together. They take it seriously, but not too seriously because they're down in Florida and there's sun and things. And, they have fun. They go out with a bang type of thing. So there's definitely some of that, but you can definitely overdo that. Talk about, because I love your take on this in the way of kids playing too many games. And some parents might be listening to this. Well, Joe, that's how they get better. They get out there and they experience and they play games. Like that. That's how you get better at baseball. Joe, is that how you get better at baseball?
No.
How do you get better at baseball?
You get better at baseball being from the Midwest, right? You get better at baseball from being inside of a cage or being inside of a weight room, right? Or being inside of some place, or if it's nice out, being outside, right? But practicing. Right? It's like, how do we get better at school? Do we get better at school in school? Or do we get better at school by studying when we're outside of school?
Just by taking tests, right? Take tests.
Exactly. And that's realistically what it is, right? A game is a test. A weekend tournament is like, all right, you've trained for this for however many days, weeks, months. Now let's see what you did. Let's see what everything has come to. Let's see you perform. And you're not getting better per se than you would be if you went and got 100 swings in a cage and you had somebody helping you and you had somebody talking to you about what you're trying to accomplish and you have like actual thoughtful, mindful swings. As opposed to, all right, I'm playing 2 games today. I'm going to get 4 to 8 at bats. I'm probably going to get 3 to 7 pitches that I can actually hit. And then it's like, okay, we won or we lost. Okay, let's get up and do it again tomorrow. Right. So let's talk about a weekend, right? You're playing 3-game guarantees, right? So your minimum of 3 games. Maximum, let's say 6, 7, 8 games, maybe, depending on the tournament, right? You could go to a week-long tournament. That's a 5-game guarantee. You can go just to a weekend tournament. That's a 3-game guarantee. And then you play 3 more games in bracket play in the championship.
Are these time games? How do you play that many games in a? Okay, you got to time.
And that's probably my least favorite thing about youth baseball is that everything's under time no right? So it's like, no new inning after hour 45, or hey, softball's even worse. It's like no new inning after an hour and 15 minutes or drop dead at an hour and a half, no matter what the score is, no matter who's hitting, no matter what's going on.
Really?
Like, it really takes away that aspect of like late inning
rallies and
these kids. Yeah, absolutely. And the rallies that come along with it.
Do people play the system a little bit? And
yeah, it's
pitchers out there taking a little bit extra time.
Yeah, it's bad.
Can I get a new ball?
It can be bad. Right? I know that umpires are supposed to police that, but again, right, an umpire, he's just doing his job, right? He's not like, well, I'm not trying to call this guy out if that's really not what he's doing, or I'm not trying to call this lady out if that's really not what she's trying to do. But like, I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, Greg Maddux could finish a game in, 96 minutes, 9 innings.
We're not comparing Greg Maddux to baseball and softball.
We shouldn't. Yeah, no, that's unfair.
But yes, it's possible. Definitely possible.
Oh, that's okay. So I think it's interesting to think, because I don't think parents think about this, like in the way of whatever. Rylan comes and trains after school. He can get 250 swings, 500 swings, both sides of the plate, and just focus on, hey, I'm going to hit this pitch. I'm going to stay back and take it to right. Stay back, take it to right. Stay back, take it to right. And you could do that 100 times over a matter of an hour or less, versus if you went to a game and play like just the number of swing. You have to play games. Yes, that is a piece to the puzzle. That's how that's the thing. But man, to actually hone those skills that you need, that practice piece, not sexy, not exciting to talk about, but dare I say the most important part of the whole deal.
Absolutely the most important deal. And like, there's multi-sport athletes. We love multi-sport athletes, just like you guys do, right? I was a multi-sport athlete. Like,
what else did you do?
Play? I was baseball, basketball, football all the way through 8th grade. And then in high school, I learned that I couldn't jump very high and I didn't have the touch or the shot to be an outside basketball player. So I was too short to be a paint player, so to speak. So I was a baseball and football guy all the way through high school. I guess my junior year, I didn't play football because I wanted to focus on baseball. And then I ended up committing to go play college baseball. And I was like, wait, now I can go play football again. So I went back out my senior year and played football.
There we go. Is St. Rita in, I think, De La Salle's conference?
So it is the Chicago Catholic League. Okay. When I was playing, there was like the Chicago Catholic League white, the Chicago Catholic League red, and then there was the Chicago Catholic League blue. So when I was there, Rita was in the blue. It was St. Rita, Mount Carmel, Brother Rice, Providence Catholic, Loyola Academy. I think I'm missing one. But yeah, we played all of those schools, like the De La Salle.
That's quite the conference right there.
Oh, yeah. I still think it's probably the best conference in the state of Illinois for baseball or football.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know I have a buddy that was coaching, I think he's still there, at De La Salle basketball. And I did not realize the pressure that came with them and basketball and performing and coaching, and how it's a little interesting with athletes moving around or not moving either. Just, I don't completely understand how that whole thing works, but it made for some really good basketball. Oh, yeah. Very competitive stuff. But here, sorry, I deranged. To bring it back, so what you guys do with athletes, and I think that's why I really appreciate our little partnership, is that I think we're on the same level with this. I see kids that just they'll play games and they'll play games, they'll play games, they'll play games. I struggle with our volleyball athletes. They will. We're in the high school season right now, and a lot of our kids are the best kids on their team. Not to toot our own horn, but like when you play as much as they do and stuff like that, and they're the only offense on their team, and so so-and-so is getting 20, 25 kills in a match, which is more than a college kid would get. In a 5-set, they're getting in a 3-set, or possibly only playing 2-set. And you're just like, is there anyone else on the court you can set? Like, is there and like their arms falling off and their back hurts. And it's like, oh, just keep playing, just keep playing, just keep playing, just keep playing. But like, it's the fall season that leads into the club season. The club season goes until, June. And then you're back with your high school team in July, and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. And that excessive game stuff can absolutely crush people and not actually focus on the actual long-term development of the athlete, which is something that's more and more used on the strength conditioning side of things. This long-term athletic development. And I think people say it, but they don't actually like think about what it means. And it crushes my soul to see kids get burnt out to the point where they just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, yeah, I'm like, well, what about, yeah, I just don't want to do it anymore. You don't want to do it. Like last year at this time you were on fire, and you never left the gym and just, I don't know. I don't know if you've seen much of that, but you guys are new with this. I mean, you've played a lot of baseball, Joe. You had to see it throughout. Like, how big of a deal do you think that burnout piece is with kids?
I think it happens a lot more than people realize. And I think kids will play burnt out for years, right? And
just endure.
Right. And just to do it, right? Yeah. And like, parents are amazing, right? I tell the kids all the time, right? Like, you don't realize how much your parents sacrifice, how much they do for you, and how much they care for you, right? But I also think that puts a little bit of pressure on those kids that are like, oh my God, this is almost too much. Like, I'm not enjoying it anymore. But mom and dad are doing all of this for me to get better. And I mean, if anyone looked at it like I did, it was like the biggest way I could repay my parents for their sacrifice was to get a college scholarship. Yeah. So they can be easier on their wallet. Yeah. Right. And like, I'm sure people think that way. Right. And I tell kids that pretty much on a weekly basis. Like, hey, the best job you can get is going to college for pretty much free. Right. Like, kids always say, like, they're 6, I want to get a job. Why? You want to play college softball or baseball? Yeah. Best job you can get right now is getting a scholarship and going to school for free. Right. But coming back to the burnout thing, right? Like, it happens a lot. And it's terrible for the kids, and it's really bad for the parents to kind of watch it happen because they don't know. It's like, oh my goodness, right? Like, I want my kid to succeed and I want to continue to push and support them, but I also don't want to push them to the point where I never see them play again, right? Because like, let's face it, parents love watching their athletes compete. Yeah. They love watching their kids play. Yeah. It's some of them will say it's the highlight of their life, right? Getting to watch their kids do something that they love. Mm-hmm. And when they are falling out of love with some sport, it becomes really hard for the parents too, because the parents have fallen in love with the grind, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. The parents love going out every weekend and doing this. And hey, sorry, can't come to dinner this weekend. I got to go to Janesville for a tournament. I got to go to Aurora for a tournament, but I love following Johnny around, right? I love watching him compete. I love watching him do what he loves. I love watching Sarah go out there and battle her butt off on the mound, right? So it's tough, right? It's kind of almost pulling on opposite ends of the same rope. Mm-hmm. Kids want to do it because they love it and they remember what it was like when they loved it, but they also want to do it because they know that the parents love watching them. And then 100%. The parents want them to do it because they know that the kid loves it, but they also want them to do it because they love watching them. Right. But the burnout is a huge piece, and it's something that it needs to be taken seriously. And the best way to avoid burnout is to take time off, go play a different sport, right? Go do something else.
I think it's hard I think everything you said there about parents is so on point, because I feel the same thing with my kids. Like, it just, I don't know. I don't mind waking up stupid early on a Sunday morning to go to a wrestling tournament that I know is going to take all day. Yeah. Cause it's so much fun to watch them wrestle. Yeah. Like, it just, and I know they're going to, half the time they win and half the time they lose. And, it's funny. We could have days where, Reed wins all 4 and, wins the championship, or he gets absolutely smoked because, that's just the draw he took, or, whatever that is. And it is, and then you struggle, I think, with the parent in the way of, like, if when times do get tough, you don't want them to quit, right? Because, like, you want to be like, but if you do want to change gears or you do want to back off, you're like, what is that actually? Are you just being a baby? Are you just being weak? Or are you, is this actually like a legit thing where, you are just, you've had it up to here? And I just think it's different in every case, but I think that's the tough thing for parents to kind of figure out, like, where, but that, to your point, I think that's where other sports and seasons come into play, where it's like we did club soccer here, and we kind of missed winter this last year because of wrestling, but we did it in the fall, and then wrestling in the winter, and then back at it in the spring. Mm-hmm. But it was the same team the whole time, and by the end we were just kind of done. He was kind of done. It was a long time, and it was nice because we needed a break, and that led into flag football, which led into regular football, and blah blah, and that's good, and football is great. But that's going to come to an end, and then we're moving into the next thing. And again, he's 12. You can do a lot of things when you're 12.
Yeah.
different conversation if you're 17. Well, that part, and I appreciate your take on that too, because so many kids just focus on that one sport, which is fine if that's what you really love. Mm-hmm. But man, I think you got to be aware of it if you're a parent, that like, my kid's not doing anything else.
Yeah,
they live and breathe baseball or blankety blank sport, fill in the blank, but like, you need something else to do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if that time comes, right, like we tell our guys and girls, right, like the season will probably end early or mid-July. Yeah. Don't do anything from the time the season ends until basically you come get your uniform sized for whatever team you're playing for, or you have your first team practice, right? Like,
which is then when?
So we started our team practice last week of August, only because that was with our high school guys, and the girls did around the same time as well. Softball plays way more tournaments than baseball.
Yeah.
Like, I think on average, my softball teams during the fall and the winter will play close to 7 to 10 tournaments.
Wow.
Where baseball boys last year, I think on average, we played 3 in the fall. But then again, right, a lot of boys in high school play football.
Yeah.
So it was tough last year to try to make it work. So it was like, all right, we got 12 guys on the roster, 6 of them play football. How are we going to?
Yeah.
Right. So what we did this year was a little bit different, right? So we were doing, our high school guys are doing a Sunday league doubleheader run by, it's run by the Boys and Girls Club, but it's, Bob Koopman over at RU, who you know, he's kind of like heading up the league. So he does all the scheduling and stuff. So we're doing those on Sundays for 7 weeks. So those started the first week of September. So we needed to do something a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But essentially, right, you stop doing baseball or softball activity middle of July, and you don't pick it up again until, September.
Yeah.
Is essentially what it is. And then you just get to kind of relax.
Yeah.
Right. Like, not saying stop working out, not saying stop eating right, not saying doing any of that stuff.
Let yourself go.
But like, let baseball and softball go for that time. Yeah. Relax. Right. That was kind of like when I was playing college ball and playing professional baseball, there was those times where it was the off season.
Yeah.
Right. As a pitcher, I'm going to do nothing from September 1st, the season ends, right? I think the championship for minor league baseball is usually like the middle of September, but let's say September 1st, the season ends. I know I have to be ready to go in February for spring training. Yep. I'm not going to do anything the month of September or October. Nothing. I'm going to lift, eat right, but I'm doing no baseball activity. Yep. Then come November, it's like, all right, let's get it back going again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I kind of missed this. I kind of missed getting after it a little bit, throwing the ball around, doing my shoulder stuff. Like, I missed the preparation for the new season.
Yeah.
So it can be treated the same way for the youth athletes, right? Just figure out a time where you don't have baseball or softball and just don't do baseball or softball. Let your body and let your mind recover. Miss the game a little bit.
I think it's interesting. I go back to volleyball here, just because it's with talking to our kids that end up playing in college and they come back in the summer and stuff like that. They have finally, I don't say have finally, but they often feel so good about the cadence that they've developed now, because they get to school, they dive right into, season, fall sport, boom. But come winter, when it's over, they do exactly what you're talking about. They stop playing volleyball. Mm-hmm. They get hot and heavy in the weight room, probably for the first time, because that's the thing that we always struggle with, is we're always training in-season athletes. Mm-hmm. And to actually really run through solid progressions and to really, really get after it is basically impossible, because Sarah's got a tournament this weekend, and then a tournament in 2 weeks from there. And then when can we actually really, really push you? Because if we push you too hard, then you're going to be sore and you're going to play like garbage, and then you're going to feel, and it's always stinking frustrating. But then they get into college, the winter, they hit the weights super hard. They have some spring games, but it's chill, right? We're relaxing. There's practice, but it's more the like basic foundational things, and it's footwork, and it's getting good. It's nothing overly intense. They just, there's practice, but again, they kind of back it off a little bit. They hit summer. Summer's great. They train hard. They work out. They hit all the lifting, because they know when they get back to, because a lot of them have to report early, just because, volleyball being a fall sport, that they're ready to go and they can dive right into it. Walk people through collegiately, baseball, softball, what you went through in the way of like, hey, go to college. Here's my fall season. Here's the winter season. Obviously, baseball being a spring sport. What that looks like because you're trying to make the best collegiate baseball player you possibly can.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that you're playing 1,000 games through the fall, through the winter, to make you the best baseball player you can possibly be.
Right. So I'll start by saying this, right? Like I didn't really work out until let's call it my senior year of high school. I started going to this place called Get Fast. It was in Oak Brook, I think.
Did you get fast?
I got faster.
Okay, good.
I don't think anybody can help me get fast, so to speak. But it was fantastic, right? However, it was like the first time that I really started to work out. And I was like, oh my God, I probably should have started doing this probably 3 years ago. But when I get to college, it was like I had still never done anything before.
Yeah.
Because the Louisville strength and conditioning was incredible. Like they beat the crap out of us in the best way possible.
Good.
So as soon as I get on campus, right, I went early. So I went in the summer.
You went early?
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't play summer baseball. I didn't play travel baseball my senior year. It's the summer of my senior year. I went to school early. I took some classes.
Okay.
Because a lot of times in baseball, right, when you go to a school or a school says like, hey, there's a possibility you might get drafted, right? If the schools are doing it right, they're going to say, okay, if you get drafted your junior year, you still have classes that need to be made up, and we don't want you to not get your degree. Oh. So they pushed me and pretty much my whole class to come early on campus, get used to the weight room, get used to the class schedule, get used to campus, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
So we'd get there, we'd wake up. First lift was 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. So we go lift for an hour and a half, and I was like, oh yeah, I've lifted before. This is cool. And it was not cool. I got funny story, actually. My first ever workout, lift started at 6 o'clock. I got up at 5:55. Yes. And I got to...
Did you make it there in time?
No, I did not. I walked in at 6:06. And the strength coach at the time is the best strength coach name you'll ever see. His name is Eric Hammer. Eric's doing, he does...
I'd be more successful as a strength coach if my name was Eric Hammer.
Yeah. But he does something similar to this. So he does like a sports performance, and then he also does like an adult fitness type thing out in Louisville still.
Okay.
Hammer, he goes, I knew it. Somebody was going to be late. And he goes, take him to the cardio path. So outside our weight room, there was a cardio path. That was like, there was a 1 mile lap, and then there was a 2 mile lap. And he just goes, lunge his ass. So I lunged the mile cardio path for an hour and a half straight. And I was sore for about a month after this. But then I was like, okay, great. Now I got lift done. 7:30, I go back to the locker room, shower real quick, go to my 8 a.m. class. Class at 8 a.m., all the way till like noon. Then I go to the field, training room stuff, do whatever we got to do there. And then we got like it was called like early practice, right? Mm-hmm. Early work, they called it, where like we would just go out there and like a coach would kind of peek his head out there because they couldn't technically work with us at that time, right? We were just kind of there and we did our own thing. And then, a couple of us would go like work out again afterwards. Yeah. And then we had study hall at night. But yeah. It was a rude awakening that first day, but the weight room thing, the weight room piece was like the whole reason why I kind of brought this story up was like, even if you think you're ready, you're not ready. Yeah. If the college is doing it the right way, right? And the best way to be ready is to do that type of stuff from 13, 14, 15 years old. Yeah. Definitely once you get into high school. Yeah. When you're a freshman in high school, you should be doing some sort of working out consistently to build that foundation. And I think that's the biggest piece that's missing in youth sports is that foundational strength. Yeah. We talk about it, right? You see kids walking in a straight line, but they're really kind of dog tracking a little bit. Yeah. You're like, why do your hips do that? Or pitchers that walk in and their throwing shoulder is like this and their non-throwing shoulder is a little bit down. And you're like, that's not great. Or you have them do like a basic like upward rotation of the scapula, and you see that the non-throwing scapula is winged off the rib cage pretty bad, and you're like, oh my goodness, we got to do something about this, right? Yeah. However, from a baseball specific training program like we are, it's really hard to do that with every single kid, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we'll give them the blanket, like, hey, you got I's, Y's, T's, W's, and A's, you got your band work, you got your internal, external rotation, and you got your T-spine mobility and hip mobility stuff. Like here, it's blanket.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work for everybody. It's great. Yes, but it doesn't work for everybody, right? Because you take, let's just say, you take a Rylan Sahlberg, right, who is 13 years old. You take an Aiden Chirado, who is 16 years old. Aiden's gigantor. Rylan is still young and still growing. You can't train those guys the exact same way when it comes to what they need as far as like, do you have asymmetries? Do you have muscular imbalances, right? Like, how can we help them? We can only take it so far. We can give them the I's, Y's, T's, W's, A's, give them the band work, give them the T-spine stuff, give them the hip stuff. But it really comes down to the foundational strength which is why I'm so excited we partner with you guys. They need to be in here. And I'm telling them, like, go work out. And I'll give them subtle things, right? Like a couple guys on the 16U team, like we were playing out, we had practice and we were doing sliding practice and the field was just a dust bowl and they were covered.
Hasn't rained in a while.
No. And so they start like taking their shirts off. I'm not getting in my car like this. And I'm like, dude, you need to eat a sandwich. Like, you need to go work out, do something. But it's like, oh,
eat a sandwich, lift some weights.
Like, please do them at the same time. Like, something to help.
Or put your shirt back on.
Yes. Like, I don't want to see your rib cage right now. Like, you need to go do push-ups or something. But yeah, the foundational strength part of it is what I feel lacks the most in the youth sports world.
Well, I think people can dive down rabbit holes of getting overly technical with some of these young kids. And I mean, just the thought of like, hey, if you're a freshman in high school and you're a pitcher and you throw a lot, and if you can't do a pull-up, like we're missing just a pull-up, ideally many pull-ups, but like, let's just start with one. I can't tell you how many athletes we have that like, they don't. Grip strength is terrible, and then just that vertical pull stuff can be like, so I think you can break it down to just very, very foundational, fundamental stuff, especially because they're young. As they get older, the college kids and stuff like that, you can really, start to narrow down more, but you guys are doing so much more stuff than I know we did back in the day, like very little. And I think that was my issue looking back on it. I got really weight room strong and I was not field strong hence the arm. I kept getting stronger. My arm kept staying the same, but we never did any like rotator cuff stuff in the like. It was the 90s. We didn't know bigger, faster, stronger program, stuff like that.
I'm still a huge fan of the bigger, faster. Don't get me wrong.
It was. Derek, I mean, back in the day, it was there wasn't much else out there that was, there's definitely worse stuff. I'm curious to know your progression, because I know baseball is so into the numbers, and that's why the force plate data, the Proteus stuff, like that's the part that I know your kids get very excited about because they start looking at numbers. Everything baseball is very, very, very mathy. You got the lights turning off on us, Joe. Jeez, they timed out there. In the way of, I'm curious your progression. What's the hardest you ever threw?
The hardest I've ever thrown was 99 miles an hour. One time, and the kids always said, "Oh, you couldn't throw 100." No, leave me alone. Right? Yeah.
That was in a game?
It was in a game.
Okay.
Yeah. Corpus Christi, Texas. It was like middle of July. It was like 100 degrees with 100% humidity.
There you go. And the ball just came scorching out of your hand. There we go. So walk us through, because I'm amazed with how hard kids are throwing these days.
Yeah.
I feel they're throwing much harder than they did in my day, or I just played some really bad baseball, but like kids I'm looking at, like, there's no way you throw that. Just arms are electric. Which shows, I think they're playing a lot of ball and they're doing it. So, nothing against that. I do think if you're all gas, no brakes, you might have some problems, later on. What was your progression to, you threw 99 at the age of?
It was 2016. So 8 years ago. I'm 31 now. You do the math.
-8. There you go. Carry the 2. So like 23-ish.
23, 24. Yeah,
okay.
Like that.
So between the age of, say, 12 to the age of 24, where you threw 99, what was that like? Was your arm that electric as a high school kid? Like, people watching play, like, holy cow, that dude can throw.
Yeah, I always threw.
Okay.
and I feel arrogant saying it, but like it is the
99's hard. That's
but like I remember being like 10, 11 years old, and in Little League Baseball, if you had a couple kids on your team that couldn't make it, you could have subs, but they had to be from a younger level.
Okay.
And I always ended up getting called up to go play into higher levels when people didn't have enough players. And I remember throwing and pitching, and the kids that were a year or two older than me still couldn't catch up to the fastball, so to speak. And I was like, okay, so maybe I do throw hard, right? And then I think the first time I was ever actually on a radar gun, I was 12, and my dad had bought some like $55 radar gun. So I don't know how accurate it was, but I was throwing like 78 to 80 when I was 12. And then over the course of the next probably 5 years, so 12 to 17, I think I gained an additional 10 to 12 miles an hour.
Okay.
I think the hardest I ever threw in high school was 95, 96. And that was my sophomore year. I remember freshman year.
That was your sophomore year?
Yes. Because freshman year I was like 92. I pitched at like 87 to 89. Okay. But like I had been up to like 92 my freshman year, pitched at like 89, 92 my sophomore year. It was up to 95. And then junior year was probably around the same. And then senior year I ended up hurting my back, so I didn't pitch much. So that was kind of that. And then when I got into college, I think I was like an 89, 93 guy. And then South Florida, one game against them. I will never forget, I had a really hard time throwing strikes. And after the game, Dan McDonald, who is, looking back at it now, one of the best coaches ever, right? Like me and him butted heads when I was in college at Louisville, but he looked at me and goes, Joe, you're throwing 97. Just throw it over the plate. And of course, me being the bullheaded kid I was, I'm like, I'm trying to, but that's how I know how hard I threw my freshman year of college. And then ended up having Tommy John surgery the summer of my freshman year. I was out in the Cape Cod League, and I was doing well, still walking some guys, but I was doing well. And then I woke up one morning and couldn't straighten my arm. And I was like, all right, there's probably something wrong. Yeah. I had surgery then, and then came back for my sophomore year, and probably was like 92, 94, probably topped to 5 or 6. And then junior year, I think, we're playing, or sophomore year, we were playing Vanderbilt in the Super Regional at Vanderbilt. They were the number 2 overall seed that year, and we ended up beating them in 2 games. I think we swept them. Ooh. I guess not a sweep, but 2 out of 3 games. And I remember it was on ESPN, and I was pitching, and I was like 95, 96, probably touched 97. And that's pretty much the progression of my velocity. But I think it started at a young age, because like me and my best friend, his name was Justin, he had a big field in front of his house. So he would it was either hitting that day or we were throwing that day.
Big field in Cicero. That's saying
something. Yeah, it was like a Park District field. So it was like the old school, right? It had 1 diamond here, and then another diamond in the corner, and another diamond in the corner. Right? So like he would stand at home plate on this field, I would stand at home plate on this field, and we would just throw the ball back and forth. Or we would pick it up, throw it up, and hit it to each other back and forth. We had like 1 baseball and 2 bats, or 1 baseball and 2 gloves, and we would just throw. And that's what we did all day long. Yeah. And I think
long toss for hours.
Yeah, just long toss for hours. And he was like, let's do weighted balls. I was like, what are weighted balls? And he was like, I just left this baseball in my sink overnight, so it's heavy now. I was like, let's give it a shot. I don't condone that. There are technologies out there now to help kids better than just waterlogged baseballs. But I
played a lot of those in the day.
I really think that's kind of why I threw harder. And a lot of the kids around my age threw harder, right? Yeah. Like not crazy. Nobody was throwing like 95 at 14, right? Yeah. Like that. You still see some kids doing that now, and you're like, geez. Yeah. But a lot of kids threw hard. Yeah. And I think it was just because we didn't play baseball a lot, but we goofed around a lot. Yeah. Like, let me see how far I can throw this ball. Mm-hmm. And we would do that for like an hour. Yeah. Right. Or let me see how far I can hit this ball. And we would do that for like an hour. So it was essentially practicing. Yeah. Right. But yeah, the progression of it all just kind of led up to that. And so I guess it wasn't the worst thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting too. Hey, how'd you have such an electric arm? I threw around a waterlogged baseball. I remember those baseballs. You play, it starts to rain. Mm-hmm. You got the ball. You're not going to stop the game. You keep playing. all of a sudden that ball the next day is now a couple ounces heavier.
Like,
Oh, son of a gun.
oh, this is the only ball I grabbed.
Ball. Exactly. Yeah. But then you keep using it until literally the cover falls off it, and you just, you want to have to buy a new ball. And, and that's what I remember. This is slightly off topic. I'll bring it back. When I was at Iowa State, Mark Pryor came through the Iowa Cubs, and I went down to watch him. And literally, he was from me to the door in the way of, watching him warm up in the bullpen. And I've never seen anybody so effortlessly. It's like he had a compound bow. And the second he let go of that ball, it was like, I'm looking, sweet God. I knew he was using I know there was some leg stuff there. He had, he was solid, but man, I'm looking at him and he's got this guy's got different genetics. And then he did not pan out, which is really unfortunate because, man,
he could have probably put, if he stayed healthy, he probably could have pitched for, 15 to 20 years. I don't know how long he pitched. I think it was probably 5, 6, 7 years, maybe something like that. But he had a couple good years with the Cubs. And
did he move on? Do you play with anybody else?
I know when I was playing, he was coaching with the Padres. I think he may have pitched for the Padres too. But that's all I really remember. But I'm a Cubs fan. So like Mark Pryor and Kerry Wood, those days when you were a Cubs fan, you were like, those are great.
Zambrano.
Yeah.
Clemente or Clement.
Matt
Clemente.
Yeah.
Matt Clement. Gosh. Is that the whole starting squad right there?
There had to be one more.
Who was the fifth?
I'm drawing a blank.
Oh man.
Sure.
Kerry Pryor.
Matt Clement had the goatee.
He did. Yes. That awful.
That chin piece, you call it.
Gosh. No, I think it's interesting how, you get to that point. I'm interested too. We've seen it through the Sparta Science data, and not personally here, but just through just the millions of data points that they've had, that they've connected Tommy John's issues, UCL issues in the elbow with having that, what we call explode score. So like that amortization phase, which we see a lot within baseball, softball, because when you swing a bat, it's not like you're engaged the entire way through. Right. You disengage as you snap through, which is how you have to throw or swing. Like, can't change that. However, if you're all gas and no brakes, eventually in golf the same way and stuff like that, eventually, how many baseball, softball, rotational, athletes do you know with back problems? Well, it's because you do that same rotation, time after time after time after time, especially if you throw a bat right. It's always starting on this right side. It's always coming to this left side. Huge imbalances going left, but that's how you play the game. So it's not like we can, change that a whole lot outside of everybody becoming a switch hitter and, bringing balance to the force, but that's not realistic. But it's interesting how that jump data connects to like a UCL stuff. And you mentioned a back injury before. I'm curious if that back injury would have connected to that UCL, and
it's possible,
what that,
it's definitely possible.
How rough was that surgery and stuff coming back?
I think I had it August 14th of 2012, and I pitched in a game.
August 14th. It's funny you knew the exact date.
Yeah. Just had my 12-year anniversary now.
Oh, there we go. Did you have a party?
No, I didn't.
Was it no cake or anything?
Yeah, it's gotten less and less exciting as the years have gone by. But so August 14th, 2012, had the surgery, and I was pitching. I pitched in a game. It was chillier, not super cold, but not warm either. I want to say early May. Okay. The following year. So it wasn't a full year.
Jeez.
But yeah, I mean, the surgeon did a great job.
Yeah.
The training room at Louisville was fantastic. They had everything I could have possibly needed. And again, the strength and conditioning side of things were fantastic too. They had me loaded in all types of different ways, just not using this arm. Yeah. Right. But it was amazing how, like, when I did come back, I still felt just as strong. Yeah. Right. But I will kind of touch on, like, how you said that the explosiveness does relate to a little bit of arm injury. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's very obvious why you said it like 3 times now, all gas, no brakes. If we can't slow down, we have no chance of staying healthy. Yeah. Right. Like, yes, we're unilateral athletes when it comes to baseball and softball. However, you can figure out a way to train the other rotation if you're not a switch hitter or if you're not a switch thrower. It's you come into a weight room and you train both sides of the rotation piece or the anti-rotation piece, right? And you figure out how to decelerate. And that's a new thing we added in the facility now is we have the water bags. water bags, I feel, are fantastic tools to help kids figure out how to rotate well.
Yeah.
Because if they're not rotating well, that water is going to throw them all over the place. But also how to stop.
Yeah.
Because if you got water half on one side of the bag, it's all at the bottom of the bag, right? And you rotate as fast as you can, all that water is rushing to one side of the bag. And you have to brace and you have to bring it back, right? So you can have the most electric arm known to man, known to woman, right? But if you can't slow down or if you can't decelerate properly, you're not using the correct muscles to decelerate, it's going to go to the end range, right? So you don't see very many wrist injuries in baseball and softball.
You don't.
But the next closest joint, distally speaking, right, is the elbow, which is actually going through the most strain when they're in the throwing motion. Yeah. So it makes sense.
I'm amazed when you see those pictures of, somebody throwing, and I can't do it at all. Yes. Like, holy cow. It's like, how is that? And it's so loaded, and then wild. It's just, oh my gosh. It is wild. I don't know how else to describe it. Crazy. It's like, that doesn't look human at all.
I saw something. I can't remember the exact number. So it was like when a overhand thrower goes from full external rotation to full internal rotation, it's like it's almost, it can't even be like measured by like the speed, right? Like the time of it all. It's so small. Like I love watching, because I do a lot of the video analysis for the pitchers, right? Or just the throwers in general. And I'll watch it in slow motion, right? And I'll go frame by frame by frame. And one frame, their arms are full external rotation. The next frame, they're back. And you're like, that had to have been really fast. I took that video in slow motion and I'm going frame by frame.
Yeah.
So it is pretty wild how fast that arm moves through that range of motion. Yeah. And it's no wonder why there are some arm injuries when we throw.
Yeah. It's not the most natural human movement.
Overhand hit with volleyball, right? Or throw a javelin or anything along those lines that has to do with internal, external rotation.
Yeah. What, bring it back to Athletes HQ here. What are you trying to accomplish with Athletes HQ over the next 5 years?
It's a really good question. I can't say like number one goal, right? Obviously our main point that we're trying to get at is help train these kids from the time they're young through high school, right? Yes, there's going to be some kids that leave and go to other programs. Yes, we're going to get new kids each year. That's going to happen, but it's not a thing that we're trying to do necessarily. No. Yeah, I'd love to have more kids because I feel like the more kids we have, I feel like they're in a good place where we can actually help them. Yeah. Right. And I'm not talking bad about any other program in the area because I have a lot of respect for every other program. I just feel very strongly that the staff that we have there is very good at what we do, and we will help these athletes get better. So that I would say that's probably goal number one. In the next 5 years, it's tough, man. I would love to say I'd like to have a bigger facility. I'd love to say I'd like to have X amount of teams. I'd love to say I'd like to have X amount of college commitments, but like that side of things is kind of back burner right now. Yeah. Like my goal is to help the kids that are here now, prepare them for the next level. Yeah. And if that runs its course and we end up with 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 college commits in 5 years, that's fantastic. Yeah. That's just icing on the cake, really, because that is our main goal, right? Yeah. We want to help committed, driven athletes get to the next level. If that's college, if that's I want to play high school softball or baseball, if that's I want to play varsity baseball or softball, right? Whatever that may be for them, we want to help them get there. Yeah.
Not just play a billion games and win these tournament trophies.
No. I honestly could care less about wins and losses. I can find good things from a win. I can find bad things from a win. I can find good things from a loss. I can find bad things from a loss, right? So it's like, how can we figure out to find the good in everything, but also highlight some of the lower level, so some of the lower light stuff in that win or loss, and say like, all right, that's what we need to work on, and that's what we need to continue to do. Right? Like a kid could hit a homer, right, and he trips over third base. I'm going to let him know about tripping over third base. Right? Like, hey, we need to figure out how to make this run, right?
Way to be an athlete.
Yes. Like just anything like that, right? A kid's having a great day, but he goes fastball by somebody, and then wants to throw a breaking ball. And all of a sudden the kid rolls a ball over into the 6 hole. Why are we speeding up his bat right there? Yeah. Yeah. You went 7 innings shutout, but what? You understand why you don't need to do that there? Your fastball is working. Just throw the fastball. Yeah. Or on the hitting side, right? Like, hey, I went 2 for 4 with a single and a double, and I just missed the fly out to the track.
Yeah.
Why did we miss the fly out to the track? Hitting's really freaking hard.
Yeah.
Hardest thing to do in all of sports, I think. But, how can we figure out how to make it just a little bit easier for you, right? Numbers really don't matter all that much. Yeah, I want kids to have good numbers. I want them to have success. But ultimately, the growth is what we care about. Yeah.
I saw an interview with Deion Sanders, and he was asked, in all your sporting career, what was the hardest thing to do? He's like, hit a baseball.
Yep. Deion will tell you. And that's why I was a pitcher. Yeah. It was much easier to miss barrels than hit barrels.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, Joe, what impresses me with you guys and what you're doing, and like specifically the seriousness of it. If I'm looking from the parent side to the club thing, and it's hard. We've been blessed, my kids have, with really, really good coaches. A couple less than ideal experiences, but for the most part, some really, really solid coaches that are invested and that are into it. And it's not easy to coach. Coaching is hard. There's lots of things going on, kids and egos and things and schedules and injuries and all the things. But what impresses me about what you guys are doing is that, like, you are all in. Like, this is your livelihood. It's not like you have a 9 to 5 and then you're like, oh, I'll go play baseball or coach some baseball because I think it's fun. Like, this is what you do. This is what you think about, dream about, you probably need a break. You should take some time off, but like when you're so into, I compare it to what BC United's doing here. Like, they're the one club in the area that, like, they have full-time staff that don't do anything else. Like, this is their livelihood. And it's not just about, again, winning trophies and stuff like that. Cause if you look around the facility, there's I don't know how many different tournament-y things they've won, but they're like in some closet and covered with dust. What they're really proud of, and you just said the same thing, is all the flags that they fly, and hey, this represents all these kids that have gotten to the next level, going to the next thing. And much more about the athlete, which obviously you play on a team. So that's part of the whole shebang. I'm not denouncing the team piece, but like, I think that's the thing that impresses me with you guys, where like, you take this insanely seriously. Same thing we do with the strength and conditioning thing. Like, we take this insanely seriously because we understand the positive effects they can have. In the same way with, I don't know how people like have a full-time thing and then try to like coach, and like too many things going on.
Kudos to those ones.
Yeah, seriously. Oh my gosh. But no, I love what you guys are doing there. I love your take on it. It does help that you're a kinesiology major, and see baseball and, talk through human movement in the way of like, it just, I respect the crap out of what you guys are doing over there, because I feel like you're doing it the right way. And my kids haven't tried baseball yet. We've tried everything. No baseball yet. I don't know why. No reason. Joe, I want to wrap this up here, but what would we miss? What do you wish I would have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Oh, I feel like
we jammed for an hour here, man.
I don't feel like you asked me many questions. I felt like we were just talking a little bit, kind of going back and forth. I think one thing I do want to mention, right? You did say like we take it serious, right? Like at the younger levels, right? We have an 11U baseball team. So like 11 and 12, it's serious, but it's not as serious, right? But as you get older and then into high school, it's definitely different, right? Because it's like, if you want to play at the next level, then we want you to play for us. Yeah. If you don't want to play at the next level and you're just playing baseball to play baseball, have your parents save your money. Yeah. Because we're not the place for you. Yeah. Right. Like, we want to help you and continue to push you to the next level. Right. So if college softball, college baseball is what you want, we'll love you. Yeah. Come on. We'll take you. Right. Now, we'll still do lessons for everybody. Yeah. Right? A 5-year-old that's just trying to get into baseball or softball, right? Or a high school kid that's just trying to make the JV team for next year. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. We'll help you. Yeah. Right. However, when the kids are in our program for our travel teams and they go through our training program and everything like that, it's like, we want to push them to the next level. Yeah. We'll help anybody that comes through our doors. Doesn't matter. We'll meet you where you are and we'll help you. But if you play for us, we're going to hold you to a higher standard as far as like how you show up. how you take the field, how you get off the field, what your grades are like, how you respect your parents or your family members, how you speak to your coaches, how you speak to your teammates. We're going to hold you accountable for those things. Yeah. And I have no problem calling somebody out in front of the entire facility if I feel that they're not doing something properly. Because when you get to college, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny at your parent meeting, just kids that showed up late. Hey, Mike, thanks for coming. Glad you made it.
Thanks for fitting us in.
Yeah. Traffic pretty rough out there. It's pretty, man. Up and down 173. It's a rough area. No, I think it's funny. You just brought up those pieces, like, and that's part of the game too, that I think is not always taught. And especially in this day and age where, I don't know, athletes seem to be empowered to do whatever the heck they want to. There's in my opinion, I think yours too, but like there's a right way to play the game. There's a wrong way to play the game. There's a respectful way to play the game. There's a respectful way to talk to officials. There are respectful ways in which to, talk to your parents, and, parents the same, and, back at the kids. And I've talked to college coaches that like they'd be watching kids, play, and they'd hear mom or dad yelling and it's like, oh man, if that's your parent, I don't. They're razzing the umpire. They won't they won't shut up. They're just and they don't even know what they're talking about in the same breath. Like, gosh, yeah, I kind of wanted their kid, but now look, like,
it's the real thing.
I don't want mom to come with them. Like, just,
I have plenty of friends that coach college sports, and hey, Joe, how are the parents? Like, it's a question.
Yeah,
they ask, right? Because it's sometimes a deal breaker.
Yeah,
they don't want to deal with the riffraff that could come with it, right? Yeah. And it's, yes, the parents are just trying to do what's best for their kids, but like sometimes the parents need to just be like, all right, I just want to be a fan. Yeah. Right. Let me get some nachos. Let me watch the game. Yeah. Bad calls are going to happen. Yeah. It's going to happen.
And it's hard as a parent to not.
Oh, it's really hard.
Oh gosh.
It's really hard. But that's kind of what the coaches are for, right? Like anybody that plays for me or has played for me knows that I will go to bat for them, and I will argue with an umpire. Yeah. I'll do it respectfully. Yeah. Right. But I will argue with an umpire if I feel that the call was wrong and I feel like he or she missed it and it affected my player in a negative manner. Yeah. Right. So it's like, or the team in a negative manner. I'm going to go to bat for them. Yeah. So like that was one of my, expectations, non-negotiables for the parents. Like, don't talk to umpires. Yeah. Like, I'll talk to them. I promise you, I will talk to them. And I promise you that I'll probably do it a little bit better than you will. I won't be a jerk. No, I won't be a total jerk. Yeah. I will have some jerk comments, but I promise I'll probably get a little bit more. He'll probably listen to me a little bit more than he'll listen to a parent, right? Yeah. Or he'll listen to a coach more than he'll listen to a parent on the sidelines. Yeah. Umpires are taught not even to look into the stands. Yeah. So
I'm amazed at how many. We had one of our, sounds terrible. Oh, I shouldn't say this. I'm going to say it. One of our soccer parents get kicked out of a game, 12-year-old soccer game. Just whatever, a few months back, and just arguing something with an official. And soccer's goofy too, where like the coach is on the dead opposite side of the field. So when like you're on you're 10 feet away from the official, from the ball, from the whatever, coach can't hear a thing. They're on the opposite side. Baseball's a little more intimate with that. But I'm like, oh my gosh, they're 12. Like and he felt bad when it was all said and done. Like it was, he knew he crossed the line, and he was just upset. And but just be a fan. Get some nachos.
Just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful weather, taking a game. There you go. Well, Coach, people want to look into Athletes HQ, everything you guys do. Where do they go?
You can go to athleteshq.com. They'll have, it'll be a joint website between the Elgin facility and our facility. Yep. And then we're actually, Athletes HQ has opened up another location in DuPage County somewhere. I can't remember exactly what it is. I want to say Carroll Stream, but I'm not 100% certain. So if you go on that website, it'll give you options, right? Like it'll say Elgin, Rockford, or DuPage, and then you'll just click on the Rockford location, and it'll bring you to like our training scheduling site. But if anybody wants to, give me a call, it's a cell phone I carry with me 99% of the time. Shoot me a text message. We're on Facebook, Instagram, however you want to get a hold of us.
There we go.
Be happy to answer any calls you got.
What's the Instagram handle?
It should just be Athletes HQ Rockford.
Okay. Gotcha. You guys have your own Instagram.
Yes.
It's yours. Okay.
Yeah. It's not very heavy on the posting. Yeah. But
Alexa could get on this. I mean, come on.
I need some.
What do you pay her for?
CJ, one of the hitting instructors, he was a marketing major. He's mentioned it in passing.
He went to school for this.
And I'm just like, just take it. Please. I don't want to do it. I never really posted on social media when I was in high school or college or anything like that. They always told us, like, be careful what you post. Yeah. Right. So now it's like, I don't know if I want to post that. Yeah. Right? Like, so it's just something that never really is like at the forefront of my mind. Yeah. But I definitely need somebody to stay on there. Yeah. It's a thing. It is definitely a thing. It's kind of annoying how much of a thing it is. Sorry, not kind of. It's really annoying how big of a thing it is. But awesome. Coach, I really appreciate your time. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Listeners, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for listening to another episode of Oak Performance Radio. Don't forget to check us out on the social at Oak Performance and online at www.oakstrength.com/Oak Performance. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.